Hello and welcome to our Gold viewers who are here with us today. Welcome to Gold's Lactation 2024. I'm Kristen Schwartz, licensed midwife and one of the MCs here at Gold. And here I am today with Dr. Shela Hirani. Welcome, Shela.
Thank you so much, Christine, for inviting.
It's wonderful to have you here. You have a fantastic presentation on a very important topic coming up here at the Gold Lactation Online Conference of 2024. The title is Humanitarian Aid and Breastfeeding. What does the research tell us that is needed? Thank you so much. But before we jump into the topic, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and where you're working right now.
So thank you so much, Christine. I'm Dr. Shela Hirani. I'm an associate professor at the University of Regina, Faculty of Nursing, and I'm also a certified lactation consultant since 2013. And pediatric and neonatal is one of my greatest interests, and always worked in settings that were the low resource settings or the pediatric or the neonatal settings. And before coming to Canada, I worked in Pakistan, so I have more of a global experience of working in different settings with mothers and babies with diverse care needs. And various of my research like are with the working mothers who are employed. And one of my highlighted area during my PhD was my work in disaster relief camps with the breastfeeding mothers and young children. So in this presentation, like I look forward to share more aspects on the humanitarian aid and breastfeeding, because there are various pitfalls that a lactation consultant must understand in the low resource settings, specifically where humanitarian aid is also distributed to mothers who are with the young kids.
Right. That's a great lead in because I have a question for you. Because you have worked in so many different settings and in disaster areas and settings and such, what did you see or what did you feel are the key challenges providing humanitarian aid support for breastfeeding mothers in crisis situations? What are the key challenges that you've seen there?
The very first key challenge that I have noticed while working in the low resource setting, especially in the disaster relief camps in Pakistan, especially where I traveled to the mountainous region in Pakistan, where there was no healthcare setting available, no healthcare professionals were available, women were living in tents and disaster relief camps that were located at the top of the mountain. And why they were living at the top of the mountain? Because the nature of the disaster was such that it was a glacial lake outburst flooding.
Oh.
So, like when the glacier bursted, so all their agricultural and residential land was no more their residential land. It was like now a land full of debris. And they had to save their life and had to travel to the top of the mountain and hills to place their shelters and tents.
Mm.
And they were living in that situation for more than 2.5 years. So there
Wow.
wasn't any access to clean water. There wasn't
Mhm.
any access to any supplies. And during that time, like even donors were finding it challenging to approach those women who are living at the top of the mountain. And many people in the good faith were thinking that maybe formula milk is the best option for the young babies, especially to save their lives. And they were not thinking loud, and they were probably not knowing the context that women were living in a situation where there was no clean
No
water,
water.
there were no utensils. And when mothers were provided with the formula, they were thinking maybe their breast milk is not best kind of an option
Mhm.
for babies, and they should probably start giving the formula milk to their child. And I've seen personally many children were ending up into diarrhea, dysentery,
Yeah.
and other communicable diseases after getting those formulas. And
Mm.
there were no healthcare settings available either. So, like, I was thinking loud that, like, many times access is a problem, but also like public education and healthcare providers, like connection with the humanitarian relief agencies, another kind of a challenge. because the
Right.
more we're gonna be making them aware, the more they will be able to get to know that what the real challenges are.
What the real challenges are and what they really need, right? Because we've seen it over and over in every crisis and disaster. The first thing that goes out to the disaster areas is formula, right? Because people think, oh, we need to feed the babies, but instead of really looking into what does that mean, we need clean water, we need utensils, we need to be able to sterilize and such. And then on top of that, what you just mentioned, very interesting as well, that then the mothers are questioning that their milk might be sufficient or good. So instead of really talking to the people on the ground, really what they really need and want, instead of just shipping things out there thinking this will be the right solution, right? And let me ask you this. I've been thinking about that too. The nutritional needs, especially, for lactating women, right? They need more calories. They're a little bit different. How can we, what have you seen? How can these needs be addressed, specifically for lactating women?
So over
In,
there where I worked in the disaster relief camps, I saw that mothers were starving for many weeks and months.
mm,
So they were literally like, they were the young girls actually who
mm,
got married at the age of 14. And
oh,
by the time they were reaching to the age of 25, they were having around 6 to 7 children. So they were actually very, very young mothers. They were malnourished themselves as well, and flood and glacial lake outburst flooding kind of a migration made them more kind of vulnerable towards their own nutritional needs were not fulfilled very well because they were not having anything to eat. Previously,
mm,
they were having the agricultural land and cows and cattle, but now, after the major disaster, this was not the case anymore. So, whenever there was a choice coming in from the donors agency that we are giving out some ration or some kind of food items for a family, then women were giving the preference to the male members in their household and older adults and young
mm,
kids instead of eating themselves. So I've seen women giving the priority to other members in the family and not eating themselves. And that was making them more sick and malnourished. And many mothers actually had a problem later that they were not having the adequate amount of feeding or energy to even cope up with the breastfeeding itself.
very good point. Thank you for sharing that with us here. And now, what specific interventions have you found to be most effective in supporting breastfeeding in these kind of settings and crises? Um,
So in my view, like if there is a choice between formula milk and kind of a breastfeeding counseling, then I would say that breastfeeding counseling always ranks at a very top, because that's how mother's gonna be knowing that my milk is best for my babies, and that's what I have to keep feeding the baby, no matter I'm in a state of migration or I'm just resettling some other places within that migration process. So that would be something that mothers direly need. But the main problem is the access during the
mhm,
time of actual disaster. So there are a number of ways through which like those interventions could be carried forward, like M-Health, like mobile health and e-technology to great extent if government have more partnership with those relief agencies, and more money could be routed to provide a kind of online kind of healthcare to mothers, or even breastfeeding counseling at that time would be something of great importance. Sometimes like training the local people is also
right.
another aspect, and especially on the aspects of maternal and child health, because if the local people are trained, they are the one who gonna be going providing the culturally appropriate care and services to the mothers. And many times, like women who are breastfeeding at times don't have the proper clothing that are received as a donated items. They are either
Mhm,
or not the one appropriate to their culture and religion. So many times they do need a kind of a drape or a kind of a privacy. So whenever like extra tent could be placed for mothers, especially the breastfeeding tents in the disaster relief camps where mothers who are specifically breastfeeding can be there in this tent and can feed the baby. Because one of the challenge that mothers were facing, and they mentioned very clearly that we really want to at times breastfeed. We know about it after the counseling or even through our previous experience. But whenever we are in a circumstance where there is no privacy, we can't actually breastfeed our baby, where male members are sitting or members of
Right.
other family members are there. So the key recommendation apart from the breastfeeding counseling comes to the matter of privacy and culturally appropriate care for those moms.
Thank you so much. So many wise words you have shared here with us about the topic. Now, I want to briefly also talk about your presentation here, humanitarian aid and breastfeeding. What does the research tell us? That's fascinating because, you know, there is actual research available, what works, what doesn't. So talk to us briefly about what you hope our viewers will learn in the presentation.
So I'm presenting in Lactation Conference, and that's my great pleasure to present on this topic and share my first-hand experience in the disaster relief camps. And probably I look forward that the background information on the low resource setting and disasters, how it directly and indirectly affects the breastfeeding mothers is something that I would be highlighting, along with that how like humanitarian relief aid could be routed to the needs of the mothers who are breastfeeding and have a young children and wish to breastfeed. I would also share some of the pitfalls surrounding the humanitarian relief aid that are often distributed, especially the formula milk, which doesn't do good but actually impose more risk for the young babies in
Mhm.
those settings rather than offering any kind of benefit, especially in the settings where there is no clean supplies available, no water available, and even no sterilization facilities available to clean the feeding bottles.
Mhm. Thank you, Dr. Shela Hirani, for being here with me today, talking about your experience, your work out in the field, and of course about your presentation here at Gold. It was a pleasure having you here with me today.
Thank you so much. My great pleasure.
And for our viewers now, if you are interested in this presentation and all the other presentations of the Gold Lactation Online Conference, we invite you to visit goldlactation.com, and we get started with our opening keynote on April 2nd. The keynote is free of charge and available to everyone. Just visit the website and reserve your spot. And I hope to see everyone at the conference. Thank you, everyone, for watching, and have a lovely rest of your day. Bye bye, everyone.